Hi everyone, this video is to review the preterite. The idea is for us to go over the endings for regular verbs in the preterite, to review verbs that end in car, gar, and zar, and then to go over the irregular verbs in the preterite, hacer, dar, ver, ser, and ir. Of course there's several more irregular verbs, but we're going to start with those 5. Here you can see some phrases that always indicate the preterite. I'll go over them with you. The first one is ayer, which means yesterday. Then the second one is in 2010, for example, in 2010, any certain time or any certain year. The third one is anoche, which means last night. The fourth one is desde el primer momento, from the first moment. The fifth one is el otro día, the other day. La semana pasada, last week, y el año pasado, last year. Of course, there are many more phrases that indicate the preterite, but these are a good start. The reason why I chose to include these is because remember that there are 2 ways to talk about the past tense in Spanish. We have the preterite and the imperfect. The preterite is a specific time or a specific moment when something happened, whereas the imperfect, we talk about things that happen generally or happen a number of times, but not a known number of times. We'll go over the preterite and imperfect in more detail later on. Here you will see the endings in the preterite form for AR, ER, and IR verbs. Remember that ER and IR verbs have the same endings in the preterite, and AR has E, aste, O, amos, aron. ER and IR endings are I, iste, io, imos, ieron. Here are some examples. Caminar we have as our AR verb. Remember we have to take off the AR just like we do when we conjugate in any tense, and we add our endings. Caminé, caminaste, caminó, caminamos, caminasteis, caminaron. Comer and vivir are our ER and IR infinitives. Remember we take off ER and IR first before we add the endings. I, iste, io, imos, isteis, ieron. Okay, let's go over car, gar, and zar. Remember that these infinitives that end in car, gar, or zar have a spelling change only in the yo form. So for car verbs, the C changes to a QU. I will make sure to show you guys lots of examples of this. For gar verbs, the G changes to a GU, and for zar verbs, the Z changes to a C. Here are examples of car, gar, and zar verbs. So let's remember that the change only happens in the yo form. So if I were to conjugate buscar in the yo form regularly, it would be busce, B-U-S-C-E with an accent. But because it's a car verb, we change the C to a QU. The reason we do that is to keep the sound of the original infinitive. Because if I said busse, that C has an S sound instead of a K sound, like buscar. So that's why we change the C to a QU and make it busque. We don't need to do that in the other forms because the way the vowel works with the C keeps it a K sound. Busque, buscaste, buscó, buscamos, buscaron. Investigar. The reason why we have to change the G to a GU is because if I left it the way it normally would be, the sound would be investige. That's incorrect. We need the G sound of investigar. So we change the G to a GU. Again, it's only in the yo form because that's the way the vowels work together. Investigaste, investigó, investigamos, investigaron. And then finally, almorzar. The Z changes to a C. This one is really hard for English speakers to notice the sound change. Even for me, I'm not able to hear the sound quite as easily as native speakers, but we always change the Z to a C only in the yo form because the other forms are just fine. Finally, here are the 5 irregular verbs that I told you we'd go over. Remember that ser and ir are exactly the same. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. Okay? They have the exact same verb forms in the preterite. Hacer, to do or to make, is hice, hiciste, hizo, hicimos, hicieron. Ver, to watch, is vi, viste, vio, vimos, vieron. Dar, to give, di, diste, dio, dimos, dieron. And ver. Oops. I'm sorry, I included ver twice. Well, you'll learn it twice as well then. Vi, viste, vio, vimos, vieron. Go ahead and practice these. Try not to look at your notes, but if you need to, it's just fine. Please pause the video now because I'm going to show the answers in just a second. The answers are jugué, corriste, paseo, aprendimos, crucé, montaron, saqué. That was the end of the video. Hopefully you took great notes. Be prepared for an open note quiz tomorrow.